Well, hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Loz Netto is an English singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and licensed hypnotherapist. Loz was a founding member of Sniffing the Tears, who had a huge hit in Driver's Seat back in 1978. He has also enjoyed a solo career beginning in the early 80s, fronted his own band, toured far and wide, and has had his songs covered by artists like Chaka Khan, Joe Walsh, and Kenny Loggins, to name a few. Most recently, Loz has recorded and toured with R&B act The Sharpies. With some 42 albums to his credit, including those written and composed for TV and film, it's safe to say Loz Netto has maintained a pretty active musical life. And that's not even talking about his work in hypnotherapy, which we will find out about later. Well, welcome, Loz.
Hi, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here.
Pleasure.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, brush off a few of those cobwebs up there in the attic, and talk about where were you born?
I was born in Coventry, in the UK, and that's in the Midlands.
Okay.
1953, so a long time ago.
Okay. Do you have some recollections of your childhood there?
I do, yeah. Most of them not too good, but no, it was. I was born in the 50s, so it was a different time, a gentler time for everybody.
Yeah.
So I've got some good memories. I had a good childhood. I was an only child until I think 16. My sister was born. So, yeah. So I started playing guitar age 13. My cousin taught me for 7 lessons, and but I couldn't wait to get away from Coventry, so I ran when I was 17.
Okay.
And I escaped.
Remember early on, do you remember recollections of hearing music being played in the household when you were young?
Yeah, I grew up with all the Motown stuff and Stax and what have you, and which was fantastic, great music. And then, like everybody, of course, I was listening to pop music, the Beatles.
Yeah.
And I remember I must have been about, I can't remember, about 12 or something, and my older cousin, I was around my auntie's house, and my cousin came in with Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Sergeant Pepper album, and I was allowed to listen to it on my own in the other room. And it changed, for many people, it changed my life forever. It was like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
That was a real experience. And then, of course, when I started learning to play, inevitably got into Jimi Hendrix and then Clapton and the Blues Breakers, but then I found, because at that time all the guitar players were trying to play as many notes as was possible, as fast as possible, and then I found Peter Green, who played very few notes, and that turned me around again. It's like, whoa, okay, I like this. Yeah.
Oh, I love Peter Green. I love the early Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
Some of the best stuff, best music. Wow, yeah. Well, can you remember, how about one of the first concerts that you attended?
Well, yeah, I used to go and see bands like, I remember I saw The Who, in their early days, and they're doing their early hits like Pictures of Lily, and, and they were amazing. And that was the era they were breaking up all their equipment at the end of the gig. And this was a 2-show the gig, so they had an early gig, and we went to the second half. But of course, by that time they'd broken up most of their gear, so they were trying to break guitars that didn't have necks on anymore. Anyway, so it was a bit bizarre, but that was extraordinary. And there were loads of. In those days, pretty much from Thursday through to Sunday, you could go out and see a band. You know, there's a band, and in every pub, local bands as well. It was a great time, fantastic time. I went to see loads of local bands, and they really influenced me. I went to see, you know, there was not the university, it was called the Lanchester Polytechnic. It was like college in town, centre of town, and they would, on a Saturday night, they would have like 4 bands on this big, big sports room venue. Two stages, one stage at either end. And one night, for example, we saw Free were on. They just got All Right Now would come out. So Free and Yes were on the same bill on the first lineup. I can't remember. The oh yeah, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Right.
And I can't remember the other act, but it was that, you know, the 70s.
That must have been a show. Arthur Brown must have been on a show.
Oh, remarkable. Right. Remarkable. It was just a great era, you know. I mean, every Saturday would be out and just watching all these great bands, you know, and just inspired you to, I want to do that. You know?
You want to, yeah, exactly. It got in your blood.
Yeah, it really did.
I was lucky enough to see Yes a couple of times. Of course, it was much later on. Well, at what age did you start playing guitar?
I started taking lessons from my cousin Barry Sanders at the age of 13, and he gave me 7 lessons, and then taught me the rudimentaries, taught me the bar technique. Instead of open chords, he taught me bar technique, which got me playing sooner than later. But then he went off and got married, so that was the end of the lesson. So I had to get on with it. So the thing that helped me after that was an old secondhand dance set record player, right. And you know, my finger slowing the record down so I could listen to the notes. And I just practiced. I mean, 8 hours a day, you know, in my bedroom.
Yeah,
I was absolutely just gung ho. I mean, that's all I wanted to do was play guitar, you know, and everything else went by the wayside. So I left school when I was 16 because the deputy headmaster pulled me into his office one afternoon and said, "Netto, I think we're wasting your time." I said, "Yes, sir." And I left school.
Your time.
Yeah, because I was bunking off school and just playing guitar all the time, you know. So my dear old dad despaired, and he got me a job as an apprentice litho printer. Okay. And I was hardly ever there, you know, because I was playing guitar and rehearsing with guys. And so he got me into college as a technical technical artist, which could have been good, but I was never there because I was always rehearsing with my pals, and that was it. And I'm still doing the same thing.
We'll talk about at age 17, playing guitar on tour with Ben E. King.
Yeah,
that's not a bad way to hone your job.
Oh no, he was a great teacher. Yeah, he was brilliant. I remember one gig, and it wasn't until afterwards I realized what an honor it was to work with somebody like Benny King. You know, I mean, I knew who he was, but like I said, it wasn't until much later that I started swatting up and realized what the volume of work he'd done. It's like, wow, you know. But there was one gig, we're doing 2 gigs a night all over the country. It was tough. It was a tough tour. And there was one gig we did, it was an afternoon gig in Luton, just outside London. And there was about 6 people there. And the guys in the band, we were all looning about, it's like, this is what but worth playing, you know, waste of time. So we dicking around a little bit, you know. And in between songs, Benny turned around back to the audience, the 6 people, and in hushed tones, he said, "Hey guys, if there's one person in the audience, we put on the best show ever. Stop dicking around. And turned around, and that was it. Oh, okay. Lesson learned, you know. It's like, and really, I mean, great advice. You know, you if somebody's paid to get in, you got to perform.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've heard stories like that too. You know, playing to small crowds and dinner clubs where the people are there just to eat. And so there was one I talked to. He said one of the guys in the audience said, "Could you turn it down? You know, we're trying to eat here."
Yeah.
The band's playing. You know.
Yeah. I'll interject there very quickly. I did a gig a few years ago when I was running my own band, my 3-piece, and we did a gig similar to that. And I mean, we were quite rocky. And at the end of the gig, the promoter came up, and it's a you know, sit down dinner as well, quite a lot of older people at the gig. And the promoter came up afterwards saying, "Yeah, it was a good gig, but I had a lot of complaints saying it was so loud they had to turn down their hearing aids." Okay.
They should have a sign there, you know, "Please adjust your hearing aid prior to the cut."
Yeah.
That's funny. I like to hear stories like that. Well, moving ahead a little bit, was Moon your first band?
It was, yeah. I did after Benny, I did a few more what they call pickup bands, doing American soul singers coming over. One guy was Eddie Holman, who did "Hey There Lonely Girl." Stuff like that was yeah. So that was all a really great experience, you know. But I'd done a lot of band work, what they call show band work, prior to that, like Irish bands doing Irish music, bands doing country and western bands, stuff like that. And I was into progressive music, like, you know, Yes and what have you. I just wanted to play what we call original music, but I was penniless. I wasn't earning any money. So in order to survive, I had to take these gigs. I remember there was an audition for this country and western band doing what's his name, Jim Reeves songs or what have you. And I wasn't into that at all, you know, but I needed the cash. So before the audition, I didn't know anything about country music. I found in our local shop there was a country and western album, a cheap country and western album by a Dutch band, a Dutch country and western band.
All right.
And they were singing in Dutch. But I thought, well, I need to know what country and western sounds like. So I played it on my dance set, and I learned the one lick, which is the where you bend up the strings, yeah. And I went to audition with that one lick, and I got the gig.
Learn that one lick.
That one lick, yeah. Yeah, it served me well. So I was then playing Jim Reeves, and it's like, phew. But again, great education. You know, I did about 3 of those bands, and at the end, towards the end of every gig, somebody would come up from the audience and want to sing. You know, and I had to learn how to play any song with 3 chords. You know, no matter what it was, I could do it with 3 chords. You know, bend it around a little bit. You know, and also they wouldn't be singing they'd be singing in between keys. You know, so you got to work that out as well. So again, it was like, you know, learning the ropes. You know, and so I did all this stuff, like the country western bands, the Irish bands, the soul singer tours, before I got the Moon gig.
Okay.
So, but that was the first pro. Well, the soul gigs were pro, but this was the first original pro band I was in. Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk about how that all came together. You and Luigi Salvoni both played. Yeah. And you
He's still a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and working relationship together too.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, the band.
Yeah, well, I was actually on tour with one of the soul bands. And they came out to see me. They'd already got a guitar player, Graham Collier, Australian guy. Again, still a great friend of mine, really good guy. But he was doing rhythm, and they needed somebody who could do the top lines, like lead guitarist. So Noel McCalla, who I'd worked with previously in soul bands in the Midlands, had got the gig as the vocalist. And so they came along to see a gig, and I was working with a bass player called Ron Lawrence, who I'd worked with before. So anyway, long story short, I got the gig along with the bass player Ron Lawrence. He got the gig as well. So there's three of us from Coventry that knew each other, and we were in the band. And it was a 7-piece soul band, so we ended up with two brass players, Dougie, who also doubled as a conga player, 2 guitar players, bass, drums, and Noel on vocals. So it was a good, it was a big sound. And we just it was what they called in the 70s doing the pub circuit in London, and it was a golden era, because there's everywhere was doing music all the time. So we were out 4 nights a week, earning good money, and then we were found by a talent scout for the Bron agency, which is a touring agency.
Okay.
And Eleanor Bron was the sister, and she went on. She previously did Help, the Beatles movie. She was in that. So we signed to the Bron agency, and the next thing, we're not doing pubs anymore. We're doing colleges and universities, which was great. So again, we're out all the time, just touring all over the place, and also supporting bigger bands. And then we got our first publishing deal with Rondell Music, and that led to a recording contract with CBS Records. And then we were doing support tours for bands like War, which was amazing, Sutherland Brothers and Quiver. We were doing gigs with lots of big bands, doing the Hammersmith Odeon, Fairfield Halls, the Rainbow. So all of a sudden, from small pub gigs to really big venues, And again, that was a blast. That was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, the band released a couple of albums.
Yeah.
1976 and 1977. Can you remember what the critics and the public's response was to those albums?
Yeah, the first album in particular, we got the album. It was good, and we didn't really sell anything with either albums. We didn't really sell. We were better live than it didn't really happen in the studio for us. I mean, Stuart Levine was the producer on the first album, who from Crusaders fame, what have you. But we'd lost it. We were a new band. We hadn't done much work in the studio. So when we did go in, Stuart had got the house engineer to set up mics prior to flying over. He told the engineer what mics he wanted on the kit and what have you. So on the first day, we recorded probably four backing tracks. And then for some reason, and he came over with a broken leg, so he was hobbling about. And I remember, this was later on, this is in the evening, for some reason, he was looking through the studio glass, the control room glass, into the library where we were, obviously. And he stood up and he started shaking his head and raising his fist. No. Next thing, the engineer comes through and starts stripping all the mics down. He said, what are you doing? He said, Stuart says you've got all the wrong microphones.
Oh.
So we've got to stop recording. We've got to get in, hiring new microphones. So we'll stop. That's the end of recording. We'll come back tomorrow. And so we came back the following day, and we had to record everything again with different mics, but we'd lost it. We'd lost the energy had gone because we put it all into the original recordings.
Right.
And he'd erased everything. We had to start again. So we never got the magic back. We were a bit demoralized by this point, which was a shame. So we got loads of great reviews for all our live work. journalists used to come down for the trade papers and what have you. We used to get blistering reviews for all that. I've got a scrapbook with all the cuttings in and what have you, you know. But it didn't really happen on the album. And anyway, moving on, we ended up doing the second album. I mean, a lot more touring between albums. Went on to do the second album, and I can't remember who the producer was. I can't remember his name now, but I remember the engineer was James Guthrie, who went on to do Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon and many other things, Toto and what have you. He was brilliant.
Yeah.
And that was good. We actually hired in the London Philharmonic Orchestra as well to do some strings in the background. I remember they came in very sniffy one afternoon. Oh, I can hear guitars. They opened their lunch boxes and pulled out their little sandwiches, and they got flasks of tea. Oh dear, it's a bit light, isn't it? What is this? This is a rock and roll.
Very proper. Very,
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
For having their afternoon tea.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah. But it was a good band. I mean, I again learned an awful lot in that band. Loads of touring.
Yeah. Well, talk about the formation of Sniffing the Tears.
Yeah. Well, after Moon disbanded, I then went to a now defunct record label called Imagination Records in the UK, and did a year or so as the house session guitar player. Excuse me, and did 3 albums for them, and then had a bit of time off. Around that time, in between that time, Luigi was putting a new band together. He was Sniffing the Tears, and he found this guy in France, the singer Paul Roberts. He was gigging around some of the cafe bars in France, and he was an artist as well.
Right.
As it happens, quite a famous artist, doing a big 6-foot oils and what have you, you know. And anyway, he'd recently moved to London with his French model girlfriend, who was a bit bonkers. And so Louis got hold of me, Ron Lawrence, the bass player from Moon, and some of the guys who I'd never met before, and we got together in a small studio and did some demos of some songs that Paul had been playing in France, and it turned out really good, but we didn't think any more of it. So we all went back to whatever we were doing, and Luigi shopped a deal, trying to get a deal with it, and later on, I mean, it was like about 4 or 5 months down the road, he got a deal with Ace Records, little deal. And next thing, we hadn't really formed the band yet, but we're in the studio, Regent Street Studios in London, and we're doing the first album. And what's his name? What's the engineer's name? They went on to Annie Lennox. Steve Lipson, was the engineer. I went on to work with loads of people after that. Brilliant engineer. And we recorded it live pretty much. You know, there's a drum booth. Other than that, there were amps just around the live room with a bit of acoustic treatment to, you know, stop the spillage. And we cut it live. And it was great. And to this day, it's just got a great atmosphere. Yeah. You know, not very few overdubs, you know. Yeah, so they released the record, and we weren't gigging or anything. So again, we'd done the album and went off and did our own things again. A year later, we got a call saying we got to put the band together. It's charted. It took that long. You know, it started as a slow burner in Europe. You know, it just caught light a little bit in Europe and went around different countries and started rearing its head a little bit. Next thing, we got a hit on our hands. It's like, oh, okay. better do some rehearsing. Then we've got some gigs to do. We're touring in Europe, you know, and it's like, oh, okay. So that was it. We did various tours of Europe and did some TV around Europe. And then next thing, Ace Records signed a subsidiary deal with EMI in America. And next thing, we've got a 3-month tour of America looming. And they got a manager in to manage it in the States, a guy called Bud Prager, who had Foreigner and later Bad Company, right? So he was big news. And he put us on, he broke the tour up. The first part of the tour was with Kenny Loggins doing colleges. What a band. Wow, his band was astonishing. Great players, really nice guys as well. But what blew me away, because it was my first time in the States, what blew me away was the professionalism of the road crew. They were astonishing, they were stunning. They took their job seriously. Where a lot of the guys in the UK, it was a bit of a laugh. Yeah, it was like, you know, it wasn't really on the money all the time, you know. But these guys took it to the next level. It's like, wow, okay, you know. So that was sort of finishing school for me, that tour, you know, because and bands, a lot of the English bands were getting really high, getting off really out of it all the time. They thought that was really cool. Of course, it wasn't cool. It was the height of unprofessionalism. And again, when I got to the States and saw how the American musicians as well were, you know, it wasn't what we were reading or hearing about in the papers. You know, everybody's really out of it, man. No, it was a professional job, and you do it to the best of your ability. You know, so that really, you know, really turned me around again. And the second half of the tour, Bud Prager put us on with Kansas, the rock band Kansas.
Yeah.
And next thing we're doing football stadiums. It's like, wow. Yeah. With laser light shows and stuff like that. What? You know? Just amazing. You know, so
that was the big time. You were hitting the
yeah. And we're flying everywhere, and you know, and you're entering into tour madness, and you know, because 3 months we had a week off on holiday in the middle of the tour. And we had a few days in Florida, and a few days in New Orleans on Bourbon Street. Of course, this is before the flooding. This was like when it was back in the day, you know. Wow, wow.
So were you guys out all hours of the night, huh?
Yeah. Oh, it was fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah, taking it all in.
Yeah. It was lovely. Yeah. I had a good time.
Well, I wanted to mention when I first heard Driver's Seat on local radio, you know, it kind of, to me at that time, it kind of bridged the gap between, you know, the late 70s rock and new wave. It kind of was like a segue between those, kind of bridging the gap and bringing those two sounds together. Yeah. It predated the new wave of the early 80s. Yes. But it had that, you know, the beat and, you know, and just that driving, you know, driver's seat, driving sound to it. But yeah, and you mentioned about Paul Roberts' artwork. I found that fascinating. You know, it's so real. I mean, realism, you know, to the nth degree. I think his covers, and he did all the Sniffing the Tears album covers, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really, really good. Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah. Well, any other recollections or memories from that U.S. tour you'd like to share? Any favorite gigs, favorite shows? Yeah.
There's a lot I can't share.
I got you.
Although I'd like to. I've got some funny stories, but when we're off air, maybe. Yeah.
What happens in Vegas, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Every night we were out after the gig. You know, we'll be out partying, and I mean, I
Well,
suppose one of the safest things I could tell you is while we were in New Orleans, I went to a bar one evening after dinner, and there was a live band playing, and they were good blues band, and asked if I could get up and jam, and they were kind enough to say, yeah, okay. So my tipple at the time was JD bourbon. So I was after this impromptu gig. I was at the bar. I took a shine at one of the barmaids, and I said, "What time you get off?" She said, "I'm doing the night shift, so I'm here till breakfast." So I stayed up all night at the bar till breakfast to buy a breakfast. Yeah, that's how rock and roll it was in those days. That's when I had the stamina.
yeah, right.
Yeah, but it was also in New Orleans. We went to, I think it was a place called Fair City, and it was just outside of town in an industrial estate. Yeah, where they had like in the States where they have the malls and what have you. But it might have been called Fun City, but I call it Fat City. And I wrote a song about it later, years later. And it was in one of these industrial complexes, and you went in the front door and came out the other end and another door, and it was like a fun fair, but an adult fun fair. So everything was kicking off and going off, and you go upstairs and downstairs, and it was like this labyrinth, and it was amazing. I've never seen anything like it before or since. So that was pretty good. There was lots of instances like that. On the way to one gig, between gigs, we were driving this time, and it was many hours driving. And I was so hungover, I was sleeping in the back of the car. And on detour, the guys were going to see an Indian reservation.
Okay.
I couldn't make it because I was so hungover, which I was really regret, because I really wanted to go, but I couldn't because it was being naughty. But there you go. Yeah.
Well, moving up to the sophomore release, The Game's Up in 1980. Obviously, this album didn't fare very well. I don't think there were no hits on it. So how long after that came out did you leave the band?
Well, I didn't plan to leave the band because we'd finished that album, and while we were doing the album, I decided one afternoon in the studio, I decided on a whim that I was going to buy a motorbike.
Oh, okay.
So I went out. I'd never ridden a motorbike in my life. So I went out and I was in the showroom and I just bought it because I had the money, I had the cash. We were doing pretty good. Yeah, I'll buy it. I paid cash for this motorbike. And the story goes, I heard this afterwards, that Nick South, our bass player, who now lives in Los Angeles, he's done very well as a sound editor for like Hollywood blockbusters and what have you.
Oh,
yeah, it's done very well. It's a good man. I saw him a few years ago. We caught up after about 30 years. Went out to dinner. It was brilliant. Yeah, it was really good. I'm hoping we're going to see him this year or next year as well. So that'd be nice. But anyway, yeah, I went out and bought this motorbike, and Nick came in to the studio. Said, "Where's Loz?" The guy said, "He's got to buy a motorbike." I said, "What? He'll kill himself." So he came after me, got to the showroom, and he said, "Right, this is how you get on a motorbike, and this is what you do, and this is how you change gigs. Follow me back to the studio." I had to follow him all the way back to the studio in first gear. But sometime
a brief overview, a brief overview how to ride a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was it was nearly the death of me, because so a little while later, we'd been rehearsing at Shepperton Film Studios for a week because we got quite a lengthy European tour coming up. So when at the end of the week, we had one day off, and then we were off on tour. And it was the middle of summer, I remember it well. So I decided to go out on my motorbike. I took a packed lunch. I was just going to chill in the countryside. I was out in the country roads. And I was looking for somewhere to, just eat me packed lunch. So I'm going down little dirt tracks and what have you. I went down this little dirt track, hung a right, and there's some gypsy caravans. I thought, no, well, I don't want to disturb them. So I turned around. I'm coming back down the dirt track. I thought I'd open it up a little bit, the throttle. So I did, and it hit a pothole as I'm opening up, and it went went up in the air. And I came back on the saddle and came back onto the ground. By this time, I'm back in the saddle, and I've twisted the throttle right open, and it's gone whoosh. I'm hanging on for dear life. And I'm seeing this little thatched cottage come towards me. So I'm coming down the country road. At the end, there's a road, main road, well, a little country road going across. I thought I'm either going to go through that front window of the thatched cottage, and there's probably going to be a little old lady in there drinking her tea and eating her cake. And I don't want to do that. So I opted for leaning left into the road. I thought that would be the best option. But unknown to me, as I leaned into the road, there was a VW Beetle coming that way. I caught me side on his arm. And that's the last I remember. And I woke up with the policeman looking at me and a few people, and a little old lady saying, "Would you like a cup of tea, dear?" Now I want to go home. I ended up in hospital in traction, and I was laid up with a plaster cast. I was laid up for 6 months, so I'm out of the band.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that was it. Now I'd previously been writing songs in Moon on the first and second album. So I thought, well, I've got nothing else to do. I might as well go back to writing songs. So I was sharing a house with some really good people, and the guys, the family below were from Dublin, really nice family, and Paul, and they're friends of mine, and Paul, the guy downstairs, had a little TEAC tape recorder.
Okay.
And a little synthesizer, and he loaned me those to do some songwriting. So I was messing about for a few months, and by this time, Louis had been fired from Sniffing the Tears, and he was looking to do something else. So he used to come around and see me, keep tabs on me, just check what I was doing. And he was listening to the demos. He said, "Okay, look, I was on the mend by this time." He said, "Look, why don't we put? I can put a few musicians together. Why don't we just go and do some? Let's go and jam, rehearsal room, and try some of these songs." So we did, and one thing led to another. We found some other guys, some really good players. A guy called Ian Maidman on bass, Jonathan Cole on keyboards, and we did some demos. Oh, before that, that's right. Before that, we went into demo studio, and I wasn't doing vocals at the time. I was just writing the songs, and Noel McCallum from Moon was supposed to come in this afternoon to do the vocals, and he didn't turn up. So we've done the backing tracks for a couple of songs, and they're sounding good. And the engineer's saying, "We've got 10 minutes left, and then we're out of here. You haven't got any vocals. You're going to have to do the vocals." I said, "I can't sing." He said, "Well, you're going to have instrumentals." Oh, that's no good. So I was so shy, I had to go into the gents' toilet in the cubicle, and they set up a microphone. And I did the vocals in there. And in those days, I was singing down my booth really low, you know, because I couldn't hit high notes or anything. And that was the demo. And we had a manager at the time called Miles Palmer, and he was a journalist for Melody Maker, and he was also a journalist for The Observer newspaper. And he shopped a deal for me. He went to Chrysalis, a few of the labels. I was turned down. I went to Arista, and that was Clive Davis, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think. And he said, and Clive turned it down. He said, yeah, no, because he was a voice man. Clive Davis, like, you know, Whitney Houston and whatever. He said, no, I don't think this guy can sing. and he was right. I couldn't, you know, not to save my life. But anyway, Miles, the manager at the time, took it to ATV Music, and he got me a publishing deal there.
Okay.
That's my first deal on one song called Just a Game. And from that, it gave me a little bit of cash flow, which meant I could put two fingers at my bank manager who was trying to close me down. It's like, oh, I got cash now. First time in my life. And then we put that band together with Jonathan Cole keyboards and Maiden bass. And we went out and did some gigs, showcase gigs. We were offered a deal with Chrysalis, and they wanted to, and then we were offered a deal with 21 Records, stroke Polydor, who was a subsidiary of Polydor. And Chrysalis were going to cover the recording budget, the entire budget, whatever it came to, they would pay for the recording. And they would give us a wage, give the band a wage. However, Polydor were going to give us the advance, and we would pay for the recording. So we opted for, or I opted for, taking Polydor, taking the advance. It was the wrong deal. I took the wrong deal.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Because I ended up with very little.
Okay.
After everything was paid for, it's like, where's my money? It's gone.
Another learning experience, right?
Yeah, really.
Right. Well, your single, 82 Fade Away, did you think at the time it came out it would be such a big hit? Did you think it had potential?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good. We knew as soon as we recorded it, we knew when we were doing it in rehearsals that this was a contender. Yeah. You know, and Freddie Haynes was the record company boss at 21 Records, a Dutch guy, nice guy. And he was working it really hard. I mean, it got, it was on the US charts top 100. I think it went in at, can't remember, I've got it down there somewhere. I think it went in at, first album. Yeah, it went in top 40 in 6 weeks, which is not blistering, but it's not bad.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah, and it charted in a lot of other European countries, top 20 in Holland. But then in the middle of the promotion, Polydor fired their management team in Germany, and also got rid of most of their subsidiary record labels, which we were one of. And that was the end of the album. Just boom, gone. Which was a shame. But luckily for me, I had a manager called Robert Raymond at the time, who was renowned as a really good deal maker. And he got me a really good publishing deal with EMI, Screen Gems, and a really good contract, which was a 2-album contract, and they couldn't break it.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm calling for the second album, you know, and which I did, but I didn't have any songs. I had some rough ideas, but
well, going back to that first album, it was recorded at George Martin's Air Studios, right?
Yeah.
How was it recording there?
Oh, it was beautiful, a beautiful studio, wonderful studio. Yeah, it was Renee Renata, I think was her name. It was the engineer who later on went on to marry Elton John. We were in the main studio, so huge live room. And we pulled in some good session players as well. And yeah, it sounded good. You know, it was a good album. We got when it was played to, I wasn't there, but I took on another manager. And my team, my management team, took it to Germany to present it, and apparently the album got a standing ovation.
Okay.
So it was well received, and I got really good reviews as well for that one. Yeah. Excellent reviews. So it was a shame to see it nosedive like that.
Yeah, for that. Well, on your second album, what was it like working with engineer Barry Hammond?
Yeah, he'd work with everybody.
Yeah.
And it was Mike Vernon's studio. Mike Vernon is the original producer of Fleetwood Mac, Chicken Shack, and all those guys. All the old blues recordings.
Right,
that was
right.
Mike Vernon.
Yeah.
So it's his studio. So it's got, and Barry Hammond had engineered a lot of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, you know, a legend. You know. A really nice guy as well. And it was an old school building, which they converted. So it was really good. And as it happened, I didn't know whether this was going to, whether it was going to turn out good or bad or what have you. Because I just pulled on the contract. Said, you've got to, like, legally, contractually, you've got to allow me to do this album. So I was writing in the studio. It was a residential studio, so the rooms were there, and the kitchens and chefs and everything was all at the studio. So I'd be writing in the evening. We'd finish fairly early, finish about 7 o'clock, and then have some food, and then I'd be up in my room writing for the next day, writing lyrics and what have you, and then in the studio and just try it out and see what would happen. But it worked out good. We've got some great players in. We got Charlie Charles from the Blockheads on drums.
Yeah.
We did the drum. Oh, what a player! Great player, great fit. I tried to get Norman Watroy. That was the idea. That was a rhythm section one, because Norman was the bass player from the Blockheads. But unfortunately, he was too out of it.
Yeah.
He couldn't make the gig. He was strung out. So I ended up getting I went through about 5 bass players on that album. And the creme de la creme was Pino Palladino. We got into do a few tracks. Oh, what a tremendous player even then. Yeah. Because he was fresh off working with Paul Young, Wherever I Lay My Hat and stuff like that. We got the Wham horn section in.
Okay.
So that was pretty good. Got in P.P. Arnold to do backing vocals.
Oh yeah.
What a voice! Oh my God, yeah, brilliant voice.
First
yeah. But that album was never released, unfortunately. They got their own back. But some years, and then I lost a lot of the material off that album. Couldn't find it. But years later, I cobbled it together, found lost tapes, and I ended up releasing it on my website.
Okay.
Yeah. But one thing the record label did do was they gave me a last ditch shot. They gave me a last shot. They didn't like the album. So they said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll put in this studio. We went to Jacob Studios, which is another residential studio. And we'll put you with an American producer, New York producer. And what's his name? Mark. I don't remember. So, but he was he was a dance producer. He was a remix producer from New York. So they said, if you write some songs, and we're going to do a single. So I did a sort of dance single called "This Is Rhythm," which is actually I put it on that album. And he came in and I did a very shouty vocal, and he did this bombastic dance mix, and they put that out and it bombed. I didn't like it anyway. It's like, yeah, but I'll go along for the ride, you know. And then that was that. So, but
What?
Yeah, go on.
But no, I was going to say that your 1986 self-titled album fared pretty well, with tracks used in films and TV programs.
Yeah. Well, even on my first album with going back, I did for Label 21. I got some covers from that album with Chaka Khan, Rick James, Joe Walsh. So I got a bit of mileage out of that. And then in between albums, when I finished the second album, I got married. Big mistake. And moved to the countryside and moved to Suffolk and bought an old 18-room Georgian house. It was massive. Wow. And it was derelict. So, and I was stupid. But we did it up over a number of years, and it was like that film, The Money Pit, with Michael Douglas. Right. It was one of those jobs. It's like every penny, it was like going down this black hole, trying to do the house up. It was, hemorrhaging money. It's awful. So I had to keep getting deal after deal after deal and putting the advance money into this house, you know. But and so I had to go back to writing more demos and more songs. And then I tracked down my old manager again, Robert Raymond. So, can you get me a deal? I've got these songs. He said, you caught me at a good time. Yeah, I need the money also. So, yeah, I'll shop you a deal. And he did. And he went out and he got me a deal with Atlantic Records, which was amazing. I was a personal signing to Ahmet Ertegun, the founder of the label. And we went up to Manchester I don't know why, but we ended up going to Manchester to a studio called Revolution Studios and recorded. The engineer was Andy McPherson, Andy Mack, who's a dear friend of mine to this day, and he's a legend as well. What an engineer, unbelievable. And he turned in a really great album. Again, I got great reviews for that, yeah. I got a lot of work. I got a lot of soundtrack stuff from that.
Yeah. Well, who was in the Laws Neto band, and how long were you guys together?
Yeah, a couple of years, probably 2.5 years. That was a dear friend of mine, Nigel Ball on bass, fantastic bass player, and Rob on drums, Rob's surname. Again, I haven't seen these guys for so long, I can't remember half the names. But
that's all right.
Yeah, he came along. We auditioned Rob. So Nigel and me, we got it together before we were doing some other work, and we'd had a drummer at this point, but then he moved on to other stuff. So we put an advert in the paper. We were living in Brighton in the UK on the coast by this time. Put an advert in the paper, and we held auditions. And we got a guy. We had an American guy that came along, and he was a really good player. The only fly in the ointment there was he didn't have a drum kit.
No.
So that didn't work out.
Right.
And then we had another guy who'd come along he was an orchestra drum kit. He was an orchestra drummer. And and he was telling us, I can read music in there. And I'm not sure I like this stuff. It's a bit rowdy, bit loud. If I was to take this job, I'd like it to go a different way. After two songs, I stopped and I said, well, I can tell you here and now, you haven't got the job. We might as well leave it. So. And then Rob came in the following day and blew everybody away because he nailed it, boom, and that was that. And we did a lot of work around the UK. A lot of gigs, did a lot of biker gigs as well. That was always interesting.
Oh, okay. You have any interesting PG rated stories there, or?
Not really. Ironically, there were, all of them were sweethearts.
Okay.
It's like you think Sons of Anarchy and what have you. So we turn up, they got the Harley Davidsons and what have you. They got their jackets on, and they're all really too cool for school. And but they would feed us free drinks, hog roast. They couldn't do enough for us, but they were just really cool. They wouldn't talk too much. But there's no aggression, except one gig we did from one chapter, and a Hell's Angel turned up with his girlfriend, and he'd just recently got out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up in between our break. He said, I want to get up. I want to sing. Is it all right with you guys? We said, yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem. So he got up the first number on the second set. And I won't tell you what he sang. He said, you start a song, rock and roll, any key. Don't care what you do, I'll just sing, all right? Okay, so we do a bit of rock and roll in A. And he launched into his lyrics, which started with the letter F and finished with the D. And that was the only word for the entire song. And it was like, that word all the way through. I was going, oh, no. Okay, but we had to let him finish. And then he was really taken with us, and he wanted us to be on the Hells Angels website and be their token band. I can open doors for you, mate. All right, you stick with me. We didn't.
You let him have his time in the spotlight, right?
We did indeed. Yeah, we did. Yeah. It was a great band. That was a really good band. We did a lot of good stuff. But it's like, every band, there's a beginning and an end. When it's finished, and we'd come to the end of it, really.
Yeah.
And I started getting into other things. Yeah.
We'll talk about some of your production work. Warner Chapel, DeWolf, and Soho. Yeah. That KPM music, that's always been one of my favorite labels. Going back to the library music, the instrumental stuff, from the late 60s, early 70s. I love that stuff. I love all that kind of music.
Yeah, well, I'd never heard of production music. I did an album around 2001. I was living in Muswell Hill in London at the time, doing some duo work. I had a duo in London, and so I was doing a lot of late gigs and coming back, but I had nothing to listen to. I was getting really bored because I just wanted to relax.
Yeah.
And if you listen to relaxation music, it was like hippy dippy. It was like finger cymbals and Zen, and it's like, no, I don't mean that relaxing. I'm just classical music. No. There's nothing to listen to. I thought, oh, okay, I'll make my own. So I started doing a series of instrumentals, and I'd never done instrumentals before. And I wanted to be really chilled and acoustic, everything acoustic. So I did this album, about 9 pieces. So I'd come back from a gig, and I'd pour a bourbon and, and just put this on in the background. And it did the job. It was like really, really just chill me out and relax. It's like, yeah, good, this works. And I thought, well, I need to do something with this. I didn't know what to do with it. Yeah. it wasn't something you could go to a label with, because it was just, it was, you couldn't pigeonhole it, you know. It
Right.
certainly couldn't sell this sort of stuff. So I had an old friend from ATV Music back in the day, publishing, that I found out had gone to a royalty collection agency in the UK called PRS, who collect my royalties. And so I got in touch with him. I said, hey, Michael, I've got this album. I don't know what to do with it. Can I send it down to you? He said, yeah, do that. So I sent it down. He said, yeah, well, I either get it to, there's a radio show on BBC Radio 4, which is, it's more sort of classical, but they're open to new pieces, or so they say. You could send it there, or approach production music companies. I said, what's that? He said, and he explained the deal. I said, oh, okay. So I did exactly that. I sent them out to about 14 labels, and got nothing back. Nothing at all. Thoroughly demoralized. So anyway, one day, it was just before Christmas, and it was snowing, and I'm going out to see my two sons. They were very young then. You know, I was divorced with their mother by then, but it was a pre-Christmas weekend. I was picking them up and taking them up to see my folks in the Midlands, my parents. So I'm driving along, and it was the days where you've got mobile phones that are this big, you know.
Yeah, those huge ones.
And my phone went, and I'm driving, and I know I shouldn't have picked it up, but I did. And it was Warren DeWolf from DeWolf Music, you know, the oldest production music company in the world.
Yeah.
He said, I've heard your album. I really like it. I want to buy it. I said, oh, that's good. The only problem is I've just sold it to Carlin Music. I heard the day, right? The day I was leaving, I got a letter or an email or something saying, we'd like to buy this, you know, get in touch. So I got in touch, and we'd sort of preliminarily done the deal. We'll pick it up after Christmas. He said, oh, okay. So Warren said, okay. Well, can I commission you to do another one? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the new year, I've got my second album that I'm doing for DeWolf Music.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. I did 2 albums for them. And I did about 3 albums for Carlin Music. And my publisher at the time was Nick Farris, who, and Carlin then went into administration, and they sold the rights to the other albums to another company. Nick went on to form Soho Music Productions, and I've been working for him ever since. I think I've done 18 albums for him now.
Yeah.
And I've got one coming out, another one coming out in a couple of months as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do 1 album a year for him. So it keeps me busy.
Right, I was going to keep you busy off the street, and it keeps you into music, like you said, and keeps you creative, keeps you, you know, those juices going. Well, when did you join the Sharpies, the R&B band?
That would be, I think that was probably 2016. Yeah, 2016. Okay. Cause I wasn't doing anything. I'd closed my band down. Yeah. I was off the road. So Bill Mead, who is the Sharpies, is the band leader, singer and guitar player. He phoned up and said, what? He talks like this, right? What are you doing, Loz? That's nothing much, mate. He said, well, I'm in Brighton tonight. Fancy coming along and jamming in? I said, well, I'd like to, but my guitar is in pieces. I'm actually rewiring it. He said, well, rewire it, then it come down. I said, all right. So I rewired it as fast as I could and got down for the second set and jammed in. I'd never seen the Sharpies before. I knew Bill, because he used to come to our gigs, my band's gigs, and he used to get gigs for us on occasion. Yeah, a real larger-than-life character was Bill. Yeah, it's a real. I'm a geezer. So I jammed in. I was just playing slide on that gig, and it was good. It was a lot of fun. So a couple of days later, he phoned up and said, "Well, look, as you're not doing anything, why don't you come do 2 gigs with our band? Innit, eh?" I said, "All right." I thought, well, yeah, because all I've just got to turn up. I'm not doing the vocals. I've just got to play guitar. I'm not getting the gigs. I've just got to be there. So I did that for probably 3 years. And it was good because we were doing all over England, Scotland, all over Europe, Holland, Germany, Belgium, loads and loads of gigs. But some of it was bonkers. And there was one night when I just joined, and I was working. He had a great drummer at that time, a guy called Brendan O'Neill, who'd worked with Rory Gallagher and 900 and what have you. I got Brendan to do my last album, My Friend of Foe, got him on that. Brilliant drummer. And anyway, so we were over driving over to, I think this was Germany. And it was just the one gig. Now, normally I wouldn't have gone that far from one gig, but I was assured there's a hotel at the other end, and we'd travel back the next day. I said, yeah, okay, and the money's good. So we got there and we did the gig, and we afterwards we were having a few beers, and Bill was having a few beers, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning by this time. I go, oh, I just want to get back to the hotel. I've had enough now. And Brendan looked to the bass player, Baz, and then looked back at me and said, hasn't he told you yet? So tell me what? He said, he booked the hotel for the wrong night. This is Saturday night. He booked it last night. We're driving back tonight. You what? Like, it's a 12-hour journey. No. So a lot of things like this used to go on. Yeah, and there's another time, and this was Germany as well, another gig. We'd been doing a couple of gigs in Holland, and then we drove to Germany to do this gig. It was a lovely gig. And this has got a hotel. And we'd done the gig anyway, right? So again, a few beers afterwards, and we've got luggage, small luggage, hand luggage. So we were going back to the hotel, which is just down the road a little bit, and we're dragging out luggage, the wheels on cobblestones, some little old German sort of town centre, right? Everybody's gone to bed now, and we're making such a racket. These wheels over cobblestones. I'm going, shut up. Anyway, we get to the hotel, we're there, and Bill pressing the buzzer on the front door and knocking the door. I said, what are you doing? You let yourself in with the key. He said, I got the key. I said, what do you mean? He said, the geezer inside's got the key. Well, he's not going to stay up past 2 o'clock, is he? Why didn't you? Oh, what? So we couldn't get into the hotel. So we had to trundle back to the venue. And luckily, the promoter's still there, really nice guy. He goes, what are you doing back here? We looked out. I said, no. And this is winter, middle of winter in Germany. And I said, okay. He said, well, I've got a building next door, in the courtyard next door. Come with me. So we're going up flights of stairs. We get to something like the 4th floor. And we're in, there's no light. There's no lights working. So he puts on a bedside lamp right on the floor. Yeah. And there's like a big corridor and 2 large rooms. He said, well, you can sleep here. All I've got is these mattresses, which were on the floor, 4 mattresses on the floor with dirty sheets on. And no duvets, sleeping bags, nothing. Yeah. That's the best I can do, middle of winter. And we nearly froze to death. The drummer nearly died of hypothermia. I mean, icicles off the end of your nose, really. I was like, ridiculous. Like, what have you done again, Bill? Yeah, loads of stories, ridiculous stories like that. We woke up in the morning. I mean, what a mess, you know. And then we went back to the hotel to get a shower.
Yeah, you can laugh about it now, but at the time it was no laughing. Well, let me ask you. You guys toured quite a bit before the lockdown.
Yeah.
Are there any plans to start back up playing again?
Yeah, well, yeah. Bill's back in the saddle a little bit. It hit him hard though. It knocked him for 6, that one.
Yeah.
Because he's really gregarious. He's always up and at them. He's always getting a gig. You can't stop him there. But this stopped him in his tracks.
Right.
There's no way around this one. You know, it stopped everybody. So I think that really hurt. But he's up and at them again. He's doing a few gigs. And we did a Spanish tour in 2018 for a couple of weeks, and that's been off and on. We were supposed to do it last year. We were supposed to do it this year, earlier on in the year, cancelled. Supposed to be on again in September this year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm up for it, but it just depends, you know. So we're trying to do the next album as well.
Yeah.
But again, Brexit and various other things just stopped us in our tracks. We did do a second album. It was a live album called Live at Leo's. It's a really good album. And that was in the middle of Brexit, but we managed to do it because we were distancing ourselves from the audience.
Right.
And we shot it live, shot a video of it, and of course it's live recordings, and I mixed that in my studio. I mastered it in my studio. And so that was the second album, sort of interim album. Yeah, keep the flame going.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I mean, this year, even in Spain, it's like everybody's just starting to get back to things. Yeah, I think come next year we'll be back on it. I hope.
Back to normal, hopefully. Well, yeah. Speaking of Spain, in 2021, you moved there and built your own recording studio, Sanctuary. Sanctuary. I like that name.
Yeah.
Have you done a lot of recording there?
Yeah, I did. Well, the new album, a new production album. The brief was they wanted something that sounded like Nick Cave. Okay. Who ironically was living in Brighton. Is an Australian singer-songwriter. So I wasn't that familiar with Nick Cave. So they always throw curveballs at me. We want something in this style, something that's in that style. So I always do a lot of swatting up before I record anything. They wanted me to do an old school blues album in the style of Robert Johnson and Howlin' Wolf.
Okay.
Which was great. So I did a lot of research into, you know, how the recording techniques and stuff like that. You know, they use ribbon mics and that, you know. So I went out and I bought a ribbon mic to get the sound and all that sort of stuff. So on the Nick Cave album, I did a lot of research in him. And I thought, I don't think I can do this album because it's quite dark.
Yeah, very dark.
Yeah, some of the lyrics are really down there, really quite, you know, oh man, you know, I'm gonna slit my throat, you know. No disrespect, Mr. K. But I thought, and then there were the other brief was, and there's other bands similar that we wanted to sound like, you know, that there was one band where I'm not sure whether it's the Hosiers or a band like that, but one of the lyrics was, I'm going to douse myself in gasoline. No, we can't be doing. I said that to Nick, my publisher. He said, no way, you can't do. I said, no, I'm not going. I've got to find a way to do this. So I thought about it a long time. Thought, okay, I think the only way I can approach the lyrics, because some of it's instrumental and some of it's 50% instrumental, 50% songs with lyrics. How do I approach the lyrics? And I thought, okay, do it surreal. So the lyrics are surreal. So you don't have to be negative, but you can get the weirdness by being just surreal, you know, dreamscapes and stuff like that. So that's the approach I took. and it really helped. It helped me get through it, you know. And I did one which was almost a bit like Sin City, the movie. I had that in my mind. So the vocal is almost spoken. It's sung but very spoken, and it's very cinematic. And I just had that Sin City sort of visual in my mind, and that helped me get through it. You know, so it's this guy. The title is Just Lucky, I guess. It's about this guy who gets a phone call out of the blue from a guy he knew years ago, and he hasn't seen him or talked to him for like 2.5 years. And he phones him out of the blue and said, "I've got to see you. I want to see you at Jed's diner, so and so time." So the guys at the diner are waiting for him, and it's late. But it gives him time to reminisce, and then the waitress comes over and hands him a note saying, "Yeah, you got to get out of there. Yeah, if you don't, you're going to be dead. And if you do get out of there, say a prayer for me." You know, he's also been caught. You know, so the dude gets out and is driving. So for the rest of his life, he's looking over his shoulder. You know? And that's the punch, you know, well, I'm still here, you know, just lucky, I guess, you know. That's the sort of vibe, you know. So that was fun to do.
Yeah. I did an interview. Are you familiar with Barry Adamson?
No.
Okay, he the connection there is he played with Nick Cave, but he's done he got into filmmaking too, and he's done that kind of film noir type. Yeah, the really dark cinematic, like you were referring to.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah,
overtones, and it reminds me similar to what you're talking about there too. Yeah. Well, talk some about your latest solo album, Friend or Foe. First in 15 years. That's quite a long time. And you basically did it all wearing all the hats, writing, recording, producing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I started off in Brighton because I had a little studio in my attic in Brighton. So a friend of mine, Luigi, in fact, the old drummer from Sniffing the Tears, came to me a few years back, around 2018, I suppose. And he said, "I got this idea to do a blues album. And I think I've got a little record deal with Chiswick Records, or an offshoot of Chiswick Records, which used to be Ace Records. It's going to be a small budget, about £8,000. Would you be up for doing it?" I said, "Yeah, I'm up for doing that." So I started writing for it. Long story short, again, so I wrote a bunch of stuff, only to find out that there wasn't a record advance or a record label or anything. It had gone south. It's like, oh, okay. And we'd been working together in his studio and my studio a little bit. But he was, so I'd written the songs, doing the vocals and what have you. But he wanted to take it more jazzy blues, really chilled. And I didn't want to, because I'd been working on a lot of rock stuff with the Sharpies. Yeah. So I'd got that in, it was in my bones at that time. I just, you know, it was the way I wanted to go. So I said, no, okay, no, I want to take it this way. So we parted companies on that. We did a little blues project later. So I got these songs lying around and thought, well, I don't want to waste them. I need to finish them off. So I had to get it out of my system. So that's what I did. And so when I came here, I had to down tools for a while because I had to build the studio from scratch. It's just an empty room, shell. So once I got it done, I finished off formulating the songs and recording them. And Brendan did the drums at his place and pieced it all together here. And that was that. And I haven't really to be quite honest, I haven't really bothered with it. I've just put it up on Bandcamp for the time being. I intend to take it down off Bandcamp as it happens. I just put it up there because I didn't have anywhere else to put it. Because at the moment I'm doing another website, because my website, losnetto.net, merged with my production music, and it got too big. So all my solo albums were with the production music.
Yeah.
So it got smothered,
Yeah.
and nothing was done justice. So I'm taking lozneto.net, and that's going to be just for the production music. And I'm going to take lozneto.music.com, and that's just for my solo albums. And so far, there's 9 albums, so they can breathe again.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah, because otherwise it's lost in the woodwork, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of doing that. So the new album, or the current album, will go on that. I've already done one video for it, taken from the album, called "Move Your Body." That is on YouTube, but again, I haven't really bothered. Next month, I'll bother with that. I'm going to do a couple more, maybe at least 2 more videos for that album, which will come this year.
Okay.
And I'll film them here because I told you in the email I've been doing building work in the next room. Well, that's all pretty much done now. We just wait for the furnishings to come in. It's looking really good. So yeah, so I'll do some videoing there around the grounds and stuff like that. I bought the lighting, and so I'm up to speed, you know. And I do like doing little videos. It's just fun, you know. But I'll probably do another solo album next year just because, but it's hard to justify these days because it's like I can't really sell them. I can't take them to market and put them with a record label because nobody's really going to pick them up, you know. So all I can do is put them on my website, you know. But I write songs because I write songs. I'm a songwriter, so it's in my blood. They've got to come out somehow. You know?
You have to do it. You have to do it.
I have to do it. Yeah, but I'm very lucky. I feel very fortunate that I've got my production albums, because especially with Soho, and I'm lucky in as much as I can do music in any genre. You know, they want me to do a country album, then they want me to do an atmospheric album, an ambient album. I don't know what they're going to ask for next, you know, which is great. Yeah, but it stretches me. It's because, I haven't gone down that route before. Yeah, I'd like to have a go at that, you know.
Bit of a challenge, yeah.
Yeah, really,
right.
Yeah.
I could see where that would
yeah,
work.
otherwise it's like, well, you just do blues, don't you? Well, no, I don't.
Right.
Thankfully, yeah.
Right. Well, tell me, this is a question I ask quite a bit, and you probably heard this one before. Which do you prefer, the writing, composing of songs, or playing live?
I do like playing live.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time, because some gigs are just, you know, it's like you want the ground to suck you up. You know, you just don't want to be there, you know. But then you get a good gig and it's worth it, you know, because it's a great vibe and there's a great adrenaline rush, especially when you're playing with great players. And with the Sharpies, I've been fortunate enough to play with some really good players, because Bill has the knack of just pulling in, you know, players from all over the place, and they're all like top pros, which is good, really nice. But I really like doing writing in the studio. It's a bit like painting a painting, but with sound. That's how I feel about it, because you have to make something from nothing,
right?
You know, you have to pluck it out of thin air and piece it together and then color it with sound, you know. And I love that process, you know, because you can pull it around. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then you've got to leave it and come back to it, and then put it aside for a while and work on another piece until the creative juices start flowing for that one. Then you come back to it and you chip away at it, and eventually it starts, this picture starts emerging. That's my favorite part of the process. Yeah,
I've heard that too before, that you know, playing live, there's nothing like making that connection with the audience. You get that immediate response and reaction. But then composing and writing, it's there. I mean, unless you record all your live performances, it's kind of gone after you've performed. The recordings are there for history, you know, to go back and look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Yeah, I'm lucky. I actually can show you around here a bit. Oh. So this is my,
Yeah, yeah, here we go.
my desk.
Yeah.
Not all on at the moment. My machine's over there, and my guitar's at the back.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got a load. I've got more in the other rooms as well.
How many guitars do you have in all?
I've got 12 at the moment, and another one probably arriving in a few months.
Okay.
Yeah. My keyboard behind.
Yeah.
So I'm doing 360. There's my other monitors, if you can see. My big monitors at the back. There, really.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a bit of a light room.
There you go. That is a studio, yeah.
I'll take you into the.
Sure.
This is the room I've just been doing. I'm gonna put the light on. That's the other floor.
So that concrete slab, that was the last piece of it.
Yeah, it's a concrete floor.
Yeah.
But
pretty finished.
It's a self-contained apartment as well.
Yeah.
The bathroom there.
I've got some dirty clothes you could throw in your washer for me.
Yeah. You send them down the line.
Right.
Some more guitars here.
Oh yeah.
Some more over there. You can't really see, but yeah. So it's a good space.
Yeah. Looks like.
I've got the main control room. It's got everything I need. But I've got the other two rooms wired up as well, so I can sling some mics in there if I want to get more of an ambient sound. Yeah, and actually use the room sound. Yeah. So it's flexible. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for the tour. That was.
It's all right.
Yeah, that was unique. You know, I think I've had one maybe before, and it wasn't that extensive either. So thank you for thank you for sharing that. Well, let's go. I wanted to hear some about the hypnotherapy, how you became involved in that, and what that has meant to you, and some of your success stories with that.
Yeah, I did. I was intrigued with hypnotherapy going back to 1980, probably 1993, because I was just going through a messy divorce, and I was running a residential recording studio out there. And the recession, the late 80s, early 90s UK recession had really started to bite. I mean, interest rates were up around 14%, which is huge. Yeah, so I was running, not just me, I mean, all the guys I knew, we just couldn't sustain it, unsustainable. So I had to pull the plug on the studio, just couldn't, you know, there was no bookings, and the recording, the record labels were doing silly business. They weren't paying their bills for like up to 6 months. You know, when you're trying to run a residential studio and you're not getting paid for 6 months, you can't. And then you got to pay your interest rates. It doesn't work. It's not going to work. And I was getting really ill. I was really getting poorly because I was working all hours at Godsend, and yeah, I was really stressed out. I was on I had 2 lots of antidepressant from my doctor, and they were making me worse. So I thought, I can't go on like this. I saw a TV program, a documentary about hypnotherapy, but how it's used for in a medical sense, and I was fascinated by it. So the very next day, I was living in the countryside in Suffolk. I got the train, went into London. There's a famous bookshop in Charing Cross Road in London called Foyle's Bookshop. So I went there. I came back armed with about 5 or 6 books on hypnotherapy. I started studying the techniques, and I flushed the pills down the loo, got rid of those. I just kept studying, I kept practicing these techniques, and the techniques saved my life, literally.
Okay.
So that's my first introduction. And without realizing it, from then on to the present day, I suppose I've still been practicing those techniques. You know, it became part of my life. Right, so around 2015, I think that's when I got my diploma. So by 2014 then, I did about a year on a diploma, studying for a diploma, because music had sort of died down a bit. The money wasn't flowing, and there wasn't much going on, and the gigs had died down. And I thought, well, I've got to do something, change a career. And that's what led me into the hypnotherapy. So I got my diploma and started practicing, and it went very well. And I was really enjoying it. It's a fascinating subject. But then, ironically, music came galloping back into my life.
Yeah.
I got loads of work from nowhere. It's like, okay. So I started recording albums again. So I didn't have time to do the hypnotherapy. So the hypnotherapy slipped.
Took a back
I couldn't
seat.
balance the two, you know, which is a shame, really. But yeah, but I had some interesting times. It made me realize how messed up so many people are, you know, and the mind is a fascinating subject. It really is. And hypnotherapy is, it really is very, very effective, you know, because you get right into the mind, and you can pull out all sorts of stuff. And the majority of people, invariably, every time, people get stuck with a memory or something that's happened in the past that they can't, through like baggage, into the present and into their future, and they can't get rid of it. And they're tripping over this thing stuck in there. You got to pull it out.
Right.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. I think you need to help me get over my fear of heights. I know there's a lot of people that have that, but that's my one fear is I can't go up on a real tall building, you know, that's open air. I mean, if it's glassed in, that's fine, but I don't go up on these towers that's open air. I won't do it.
Yeah, well, I think that's sensible.
Right.
But I did have a gentleman come to me who had exactly the same problem, and he was going on a holiday with his wife, and the guy was well into his 60s, and he was going into the Brazilian jungle on a walkabout holiday. And a lot of it was like on the mountainside and stuff like that. But he had a severe fear of heights, and he needed some sort of way of controlling that. So I had him for about 5 sessions. You usually, on average, you can help people resolve their problem in 2 sessions, 2 sittings. Maximum 6 sessions. The first session will be about an hour and a half. Subsequent sessions will be, following sessions will be an hour each. The first one, an hour and a half, because you do a lengthy question and answer, a bit like it's a talking session, a bit like there's another therapy. So anyways, you've got a series of questions that the client needs to answer, and that session tells you everything you need to know about the individual, and they give you literally their potted history, and their problem is all there. It's like diagrams, like a picture. You can see straight away exactly what's going on and what the problem is, and pretty much how to fix it. They don't realize it. You know, you got all these pointed questions, and you go, "Oh, okay, yeah, all right, I can see what's going on," and you just join the dots, and boom, there's your problem. Yeah. They don't see it because they're too close to it.
Too close to it, yeah. You have to distance yourself, step away. Yeah, I've heard that so much. Yeah. Well, that is fascinating. I think that is fascinating. You plan to continue to do that when you have the time?
Yeah, I do actually. Maybe not this year because we've still got a few things that we need to do. And also this year we want to take a month or two off just to have some time to ourselves, because both my partner and myself, Julia, and we've been just full on, getting this place ship shape, and her working with the job. She's in the corporate world, so we need a bit of time out.
Right, you need to take a breather.
Yeah, and then get back to it. But I was talking to Julia yesterday, in fact, that I'd like to pick it up again. The problem, I'm learning Spanish. They say despacio, which means slowly. And we're in the middle of nowhere, so it's mainly Spanish speaking community.
Okay, all right.
But we're holding our own. We're getting there. We get through. But I couldn't speak. I couldn't do hypnotherapy in Spanish. That would be a laugh. But there are a lot of expats. There's a lot of Brits out here in this area and further afield. So that wouldn't really be a problem. And a lot of them are messed up.
Yeah, right. Because of the territory. Yeah, one of the other guys, that John Howard I told you about, lives in Spain. I asked him that question. I said, English is the primary language across the world. I said, are you able to get by where you live? He said originally where they first moved, there were a lot of younger people and they spoke English. So yeah, he didn't really need to learn Spanish. Then they relocated to an older town, which is a lot of elderly people that only speak Spanish. He said now it's a little difficult.
Yeah. But the thing is that they're lovely. The Spaniards in general are lovely people. Right. They're very friendly. But if you make an effort, they love it. They'll help you. Yeah. They will go out of their way to help you. As long as you just make a little effort, there'll be a big smile on their face, and they'll ease you through the whole thing.
Right.
Lovely.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're wrapping up, Laws. What's on the immediate horizon?
I've got until the 6th of next month to finish off all the little bits that needs to be done next door, because Julia's sister and her 2 young nieces are coming over to stay. Oh. So she's going up to Barcelona for a few days with them, and then they're coming here for 3 or 4 days. So I've got to have the ranch, back at the ranch, I've got to have it all shipshape. So that's the immediate horizon. And then after they go back, I'm going to sigh of relief, have a couple of days off.
Yeah.
And then I don't know after that. We've got that's as far as I can see. It's, like I said, it's been just full on, the blinkers on. Just
right.
Do it, just get it done. So it'll be a little bit of a break after that. I've got to talk to my publisher at some time in the not too distant future about what the next Mission Impossible is, because I don't know yet. I'll pick that up later in the year. Okay. Because this is the first proper year we've been here. To see all the seasons and what have you. And although I've got an air-conditioned studio, so I can work here anytime. We've now got 2 dogs as well, so our life has changed somewhat. 2 pups. So and we've got to get a walk in with them. But so normally we would, for example, we'd start preparing food around 7 and we'd eat about 8. Yeah, that's how we've always done it. But it's so bloody hot at the moment. So and then we'd around that time before we would like to walk the dogs before we start eating. But it's too hot to walk the dogs. They'll shrivel up and die. So now the only way we can do it is wait till the sun goes down. We're talking about 9:30, and then we take the dogs out. So our routine is on its head, and we've got to adapt to it. Right. So everything's new. So we've also been thinking that, you know, while we've got this sort of weather, it'd be nice to enjoy the weather and not just keep working, which is what, you know, the Spanish do. It's like, yeah, chill, mañana. You know.
Right.
And then when the weather changes a bit, like come the autumn, the winter, that's time to start, you know, I pick up an album again, you know, when the weather's a bit cooler.
Cooler. Yeah.
That's the idea so far.
Okay. Well, you know, best always to you, and every kind of a venture that you partake
That's
and pursue. Yeah. And continued success. And I appreciate you taking the time out. I know, like you said, now you can kind of exhale a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, until the next project comes up.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate it, Laws, and I will let you know once I have this edited, and then shoot you over the link so you can post it to your social media.
Definitely, yes.
And let everybody know.
Will do. Yeah.
But I do appreciate it and appreciate your time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Greg. It's been nice to meet you as well.
All right. Well, thank you. Same. I feel the same way. All right, Laws. Well,
Sure, man.
we will be in touch. All right.
Yeah. You take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you.
Next time.